Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you this morning? Hope you're doing great. That you are well. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Hey, Jamie, good morning to you. You're early. I know. Holy moly. Who'd have thunk it? Everybody's, I don't know about you, but I am wishing for a bit of March because this feels a little too much like February for me. Good morning, Karen. It was chilly and cold this morning, and I hope everybody's doing all right. Everybody's dug out and well and good and whole. So, hey, Sharon Landry, good morning to you. Never too old. Nice. Good to see everybody. Hope you're holding up. Hope as we gather, we can keep some of our dear ones in our prayers. Our dear Fannie Faye Davis, keep her in your prayers, and keep Donna in your prayers as she continues to heal from all of her therapies. And so we have. I was just commenting last night about how this little 1111 community that gathers every so often has really become a praying community that so many of you I know kind of care for one another or reach out to each other beyond the journey of me flapping my gums, and it is always a beautiful and wonderful thing, and really I think a testament to the movement of God's Spirit amongst us, regardless of whether we are close or far. In distance, we are all one in Christ, and so it is so great. All right, let's get going this morning. It is the third day of the third month. It is the 3rd of March on this Tuesday at 11:11, and I'm glad all of you are here with us, whether you're live, whether you're catching us later, whether you're just discovering us. Welcome to this journey. So, one of the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, he considered himself a man of science, but he was fixated about the weather and about temperature in particular. He found just temperature fascinating. That just all of the different things that happened with different temperatures, the way that when it's warmer, the world comes alive, and things become fecund and beautiful, or it becomes too hot and it becomes painful, or when they become cold and water moves from being liquid to a solid as it is outside right now. That he was fascinated by all these things. So he actually owned in his time 20 different thermometers. And so there's this way, but one of his favorites, and I think his most favorite, and that I believe he invented, but I'm not entirely sure, is this one that I have here. This was a gift from my father-in-law, Bob Murphy. And this is one of Jefferson's thermometers. It's not obviously one of his actual ones, but it's a replica of it that came from Monticello. And if you can see it, it has all of these little glass balls that have a little tab on them, and that they float up and down within the water depending on the temperature and the little tag. So right now it's telling me the temperature in here is 70 degrees. So you can see that that when the ones that float up and float down, that's it kind of neat. And this works on the idea of specific gravity, that there's that within the solution, within the water, that each one of these little glass balls have a particular specific gravity that expands and contracts, that it has a certain weight to it, and that as the temperature changes, the weight of it actually changes. It goes up and down. That it actually, and that so that it expands or contracts, and that the air within the bubble can expand and contracts, and so it goes up and down depending on how it works. That and it's I never get tired of this thing. I find it really really fun to kind of just not just to watch the kind of the little colored balls go up and down as they do, but also but just as a meditation on these different specific gravities of our own life. Proverbs 11 says this. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. When pride comes, then comes disgrace. With humility comes wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Wealth is worthless in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers us from death. That righteousness of the blameless makes their paths straight, but the wicked are brought down by their own wickedness. And it keeps going on. But this way that it almost seems like a little disjointed when you first hear this Proverbs, that and Proverbs can read a little like that because it is in many ways just a little book of instruction, like a little book of like a little devotional inspirational book. But if we really unpack it, that in many ways these texts are very related, that they actually have something to say to each other in a real way. Because when the Lord says, the Lord detests honest scales and accurate weights find favor with him. He's not just talking about the fact that, not cheating in commerce is a good thing, not pocketing a Snickers bar at the register, although he is talking about that, or just putting your thumb on the scale when you're measuring out, how much bulgur wheat you're gonna get at the Whole Foods store. It's not just not being dishonest, although that's a component of it, but it is also but it is weighing. But the traditional author of Proverbs is considered to be Solomon, and what King Solomon is driving at in this is that our lives and our being and the way in which we're constructed, the feelings of our heart, the thoughts of our mind, the even the feelings of our bodies have a part of them, much like this little thermometer, a specific gravity to them. And that we get in trouble when we are dishonest about the gravity of things. We experience this all the time. It can feel just awkward sometimes, right? We can, if we tell somebody some really grave news, maybe somebody we care about is sick, maybe we're sick, maybe there's something big happens in the world that we're concerned about. Maybe perhaps there's, but something with some real heaviness to it. You know what I mean? Like something really heavy, something where we're angry about, or we're sad about, or that has some real gravitas to it. And we share that with somebody, and they're like, who cares? I don't care, or they just brush us off, like, when we share a real concern with them. We get this in relationships all the time. We share something where that's a really big deal to us, to a friend or a partner or a business partner or a coworker or somebody, and they just blow us off. And we realize that the specific gravity of the thing for us, the heaviness of the thing, has not been measured right by the person that we're trying to share it with. That they either didn't read the room, or there's always the potentiality of misunderstanding. And I think honestly, we should always kind of default under thinking, more often it's ignorance than malice on people's parts. But there is this way that we cannot take seriously the important things, that we can struggle in our lives to keep the first things, to keep the most important things, and to be honest with that about ourselves, to be honest about how great losses might affect us, I mean, many of us on here are good Yankees, and we just want to say, it's fine, it's a, yeah, like, but you have a sucking chest wound. It's like, it's fine. I'll put some bag balm on it when I get home, whatever. Like we have a tendency, we can very much minimize the great losses or great pains in our life. But we do so at our peril, and I love the way the psalmist says it, because the Lord detests dishonest scales. The Lord wants us to bring our whole hearts to him. He wants us to bring our whole minds to us. He wants to bring the full actions of our days to him. And that he wants to do that honest, like with our full selves, not to downplay these things that we think, we just have to gut out, or we just have to get through, or we just have to survive, but rather that we have this, that we can accurately say, Lord, this might seem stupid, but it's really bothering me. Or this might not, in the grand scheme of things, whether I got cream in my coffee may not be the biggest thing in the world. But right now, this is the thing that is afflicting me. And to have honest scales, honest reporting with the one who made us. And that it doesn't always have to make sense. And we don't always have to feel like, it looks good. I've come to really detest sometimes this notion where that we all say it, I say it, we might talk about our own problems or in the world, or we might talk about our own struggles, or we might talk about what's afflicting us. We might talk about what's difficult. And then somehow we just say, well, there are bigger troubles in the world, or the other people have other problems. Well, other things are going on. While all of that is true, what we're doing, it's our thermometer. It's these little colors are ours to label. These little specific gravities are ours. We as much as it is true that there are greater problems in the world and there are greater problems in ourselves, we run a risk of not honestly engaging the struggle of our lives. And that when we do that, we get into these other ideas of Proverbs. We get into these other verses of Proverbs. When pride comes, then comes disgrace. If we're too proud to admit that something has really destroyed us, something is really bothering us, something has really hurt us, if we're too proud to admit that a disappointment is actually something that really has afflicted us, then if we're too proud to simply accept a correction that we need, or to kind of hear that we might have, that we're bound to kind of crash out. But with humility comes wisdom, and with humility is kind of just being honest with where our heart goes, or where our mind goes, or how our body's feeling. That's where we are in many ways, subject to these things. Like, I'm not in control of every thought that pops into my head, and I know you're not either. I'm not in charge of every emotion that wells up in my heart, and you're not either. And I'm certainly not in charge of every itch or scratch or affliction that happens to my body, and you're not either. And that if we don't humble ourselves to these things, now that's not to say we should give in to everyone. Don't hear what I'm not saying. That doesn't mean they're all good. It doesn't mean they're all right. It doesn't mean we should just we just do whatever we feel. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we have to respect these things, and that there's a humility in it. There's a hummus. There's an understanding of us as created children of God that are a part of these things, and that God is in the midst of all of that hummus, in the midst of all of that dirt, working itself out for us. The King Solomon goes on, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. How many of us live lives where our head, the things that we think we know, the things that we think are true, is divorced from our heart, the things that we desperately want or we desperately desire, and that there's a disconnect there? How many of us have something in our life that is like that? I would say almost all of us. Almost all of us are contending with something like we have an ache in our heart for a certain thing, and yet we have an understanding that somehow can't be reconciled with that, and that we're now, as we age and we get older, we get better at this. Like this is part of the gift of God's grace and work with us, the process of glorification that God is working with us. This does get better, but often there is this tension. I know you've experienced it. And so this entry into this experience of the divide, of the fight between what I understand and know to be true versus what I desire or want in my heart, and how that marriage is sometimes a rocky one, that the that it requires us to be upright, to have some integrity in that. And that doesn't mean we have to resolve it. It doesn't mean that it's even ours to resolve, but we have to be able to say that it exists. We have to be able to name the tension of what is, of what we understand and what we desire, and what is playing itself out. Because if we don't, the tension between the two will break us. That the duplicity, it will destroy us, because we will have these. This is I mean, you can get into the whole Carl Jung thing about repressing the shadow and all of that, where that if we keep pushing the monsters into the dark, the monsters will come back and they will find us. There's a great quote from Carl Jung where he says, if you keep experiencing things, if we fail to engage the shadow of our lives, the things that are kind of in our unconscious that we don't want to deal with, if we fail to engage the shadow of our lives, we will experience them as fate. Anybody ever had experience? Like this kind of experience keeps finding you as if you are fated to have it. Well, often that means that there's some tension that in the duplicity of our lives, that what it calls us to is some radical truth telling and integrity to God and to ourselves. It goes on and on and on. The wealth is worthless in the day of the wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. This 11th proverb, this Proverbs 11 is powerful in what it's telling us about weights and measures of the soul. It's powerful in what it's inviting us to kind of track the specific gravity of our being. The ancient Greeks said, physician, know thyself. And now that finds its way into the Gospels, or physician, heal thyself, which is another way to say it. Is that and what Jesus is driving at when he's quoting that is this: he's like, know your specific gravities, know these things, spend time with your own heart and your own soul and your own mind to understand what you really believe and why you believe it, understand what you're really feeling in your heart and what you really feel, understand what your capabilities, your body are, and what they aren't, and what they're doing to you and for you, and and all of those things. Because when we do that, that's when the love that God has for us, that's when the angels that surround us, that's when the Holy Spirit that dwells with us and seeks to make, and where Jesus seeks to make his home with us, can actually go to work. We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to have it all figured out. We have a God of unending grace that will work and do that with us and for us. And that is not about us getting it all right, but it is about bringing our ragged little hearts, our betraying little hearts, our confused and limited and often darkened little minds, and our weak and often sickly little bodies to the one who made us, so that in them, we can be made whole and full. We can be made wise and knowledge and full of light, and we can be made strong and in the image of the one who made us, in the very image of God. All right, friends, that's my hope for you today. Peace and grace to you all. Great to see everybody here. Deb, great to see you. Yvette, glad you're here. Karen, Sharon, everybody. All right, peace and grace, everyone. We'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.